Well, folks, it finally happened. Apple made a game console. Well, in 1996, and it was a colossal failure. To put things into perspective, Nintendo's Virtual Boy, which is one of the gaming industry's biggest flops, sold just 1.25 million units. Apple's console sold a mere 42,000. That's 30 times less than the Virtual Boy. I just so happen to have one of those 42,000 consoles, and this one is brand new in box, unopened since 1996. This thing hasn't been opened in over 24 years. In fact, I'm not even sure it works. I bought it on eBay from Japan for $300, which is half of the $600 that it cost in 1996. Yeah, 600 bucks. With inflation, that's nearly $1,000 in 2017 cash. Maybe that's why it failed. Apple partnered with Bandai, the Japanese toy giant, to distribute and manufacture Pippin. And you have to understand that in the 90s, Japan was the end-all be-all of gaming. If there wasn't a Japanese company behind it, it was an immediate failure. And so the partnership with Bandai seemed pretty smart. Apple manufactured the PCB, and they also engineered all of the software, and then Bandai was in charge of everything else, distribution and marketing, etc. Now, in Japan, this console was marketed as the Bandai Pippin Atmark. And in the US, where obviously Apple was more popular, it was marketed as the Apple Pippin Atworld. Now, this is the Japanese version. However, it doesn't really matter. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. It's just like all the Macs of the era. This was a region-free console. In the back, it has support for both NTSC and PAL, so you could use it anywhere in the world, and the discs were not region-locked. That was something that was really innovative of the time, and really even by today's standard, a region-locked console is still not all that uncommon. So it was really a progressive device. It even had a switch in the back that allowed you to change to VGA if you wanted to connect it to a computer monitor. Now, we'll take a look at the console here in a minute, but we've also got a ton of documentation. Like, seriously, this is like a Bible, man. There is a ton of stuff in here. Now, as we open the accessory box, you'll see that we have not only a ton of documentation, but also a few discs advertising the software available for Pippin. You have to remember the internet wasn't really prevalent in this time, so CDs did that job. We have the Applejack Controller, which actually seems to feel pretty great. And there's also a modem. Now, Pippin was the first ever game console with a built-in internet connection. And that's part of the reason the Pippin failed. In 1996, not only did a lot of people not have an internet connection, but a lot of people didn't even conceptually understand how it worked. Pippin simply tried to do too much. It tried to be a game console, it tried to be a computer for your living room, it tried to connect to the internet, and it tried to be an educational device. And as a result, it was pretty mediocre at everything. Pippin was released just 9 days before PlayStation in the US, and the PlayStation was half the price. And obviously the rest is history. But let's take a look at a few of the games. Interestingly enough, the 1998 iMac gets credit for being the first Apple computer without a floppy drive. But technically, it was Pippin. Furthermore, Pippin didn't even have a hard drive, so the operating system booted directly from the game CDs. This was brilliant because game developers didn't have to worry about what version of macOS their customers were using. And it's not like today when you could just upgrade to the latest software on the internet. People had to use floppies and CDs back in the day, and it was a huge pain in the butt, and incompatibility was rampant. But if the OS is directly on the disk, they just bundle the software on the disk and it works. The downsides obviously are that without a game disk, the Pippin doesn't have any storage and therefore no operating system, and therefore it does nothing. And because optical media is slower than a hard drive, Pippin also takes forever to load up a game. Pippin's system seller was Power Rangers Zeo, a Pippin exclusive developed by Bandai. Unfortunately, the game was pretty terrible. Let's play it now. The first thing that's immediately odd about Pippin is that these games are running on macOS, and the majority of these games are macOS compatible, so you could play them on a computer as well. Now, the downside for this is they're not optimized for Pippin's gamepad. Power Rangers Zeo does a decent job, but even the menus, you can't navigate through them with the D-pad. You have to use the little trackball on top of the Applejack controller that's basically like an upside-down mouse. And as we begin to play the game, you can see that it's pretty bad. The hitboxes are off really badly, and it's super easy to die. Remember, this came out at the same time as Super Mario 64 on Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation. I mean, it was just a disaster. This thing was way behind the times. So we've established that Power Rangers Zeo kind of sucks, and so did the rest of the very, very small Pippin library. However, one notable title that's actually really great is Bungie's Marathon. Yes, Bungie, as in Halo Bungie. They made games for the Mac exclusively in the early 90s, and Marathon was a very popular Macintosh title that was ported to Pippin. In fact, Marathon is very clearly a precursor to Halo, and even the art style is pretty similar. It's fun to see that. Now, I have to admit, the game is really pretty fun, but the Pippin is either very underpowered or the Pippin port is not a very good one. Because when you run the game in high resolution mode, the game looks great, but you're lucky to get 10 to 15 frames per second. It's unplayable. Now, low resolution mode is what you have to run in, and it produces a nice 40 to 50 frames per second, but the visuals are significantly worse, like really bad. So bad, in fact, that at certain points in the map, you get completely lost because you can't see anything. Furthermore, camera controls that were available on the Mac, because you used a mouse, aren't available on Pippin with the Applejack Controller that's restricted to the D-pad. So you can't move your gun, you can't aim, you can only straight directly forward, which means you have to change your position in order to shoot. It makes the game very, very hard, and it's not very dynamic. So it sucks on the Pippin, really great on the Macintosh, and there's a fun fact, if you'd like to play Marathon, it's actually available for Mac and Windows and Linux on Bungie's site for free. And you should give it a download because it actually is a really great game. The link is in the video description. All in all, Marathon and Power Rangers Zeo are the only games with real polish on Pippin. A few other titles were available, but they're really not worth showing much of. Estimated to sell 300,000 units in the first 6 months, Pippin sold fewer than 40,000 to Japan and just 5,000 in the United States. Nintendo and Sony completely killed this console. In fact, it was such a flop in the US that all of the American consoles, which were black by the way, were sent back to Japan and sold as cheaply as possible. Steve Jobs returned to Apple in July 1997, just 10 months after the release of Pippin, and the Mac Clone Project was terminated immediately. Apple and Bandai ended its relationship, and this Pippin sat in a warehouse for 20 years until some YouTube idiot bought it. I'm Quinn of Snazzy Labs. If you liked this video, you know what to do. If you didn't like it, that other button seems to work okay too. If you want to see more awesome tech videos like these, get subscribed to the channel. But most importantly, and as always, stay snazzy.